I believe that Terrarians often speedrun the game to Moonlord and never take their time on their worlds. I want to change that. So over the course of a year, I will be playing on this one world, with each stage of progression being blocked until the start of a new month. I'm doing this so I can seriously take my time in each stage of Terraria's progression and see what it has to offer. So for the month of June, I've only been allowed to defeat Queen Slime. That's right, only Queen Slime. Otherwise, I could make no other form of progression. This is what happened. At the start of the month, I was already faced with the unique challenge of not being able to break any of the Crimson Altars scattered around the world. I mentioned this in last month's video, but I'll reiterate it here that I have decided that I am not allowed to destroy any of the Crimson Altars until next month, when I'm able to fight the mech bosses. The reason being that once you break one of the altars, the mechs can naturally spawn, and in the spirit of this challenge, I want to avoid the potential for bosses that are locked to spawn, even if they could be technically avoided by hiding underground. With that out of the way, I decided to check up on the corruption biome I had created to see if the corrupt seeds had spread enough for it to be considered a biome, and sure enough, enemies were spawning. There were still some areas that weren't corrupted yet, but at least I knew the biome was going to work out fine, so I got to work on making a hollow desert right next to it. There aren't a whole lot of things I need from the hollow desert, but I figured getting the light shards might be a good idea, since I hardly ever use them. Typically, I only care about corrupt shards since the Onyx Blaster is just so good. But for this run, I wanted to give some of the weapons from light shards a try. The only problem was, my corrupt biome was a bit too good since enemies kept on spawning and killing me as I tried to build. Perhaps there was a better way to go about this, but oh well. Also, Thorfinn says hello. Once I had the foundation down, I started placing the sand and felt like a genius when I used its falling mechanic to more easily fill the space up with pearl sand. Maybe that seems like something obvious to you, but I was going to place sand like any other block at first, building from the bottom up, when I remembered that I could do this and make the whole process much easier. With the sand placed, I didn't like how thin of a layer of pearl sandstone there was at the bottom, so I decided to add another layer of blocks. Speaking of pearl sand, my chat convinced me to double check the desert biome for a hollow spread. See, last month, they had tried to convince me that I had missed some pearl sand on the side of the desert I was trying to protect. It got to the point I was convinced they were trying to gaslight me. But out of paranoia, I checked to make sure there wasn't anything I missed. And, well, I think my live reaction speaks volumes.
Oh! Guys! Oh! You're never going to let me live this down. You're never going to, are you? This is, oh no. No!
I managed to destroy that chunk of it pretty quickly, but there was another problem.
Oh, wait a minute! There's more!
And not just that one, but there were 2 other points at which the hollow had managed to spread, so I had missed 4 separate sites of contamination. The thing is though, several people even admitted that they were saying there was pearl sand mostly to add to the joke. There were only a few people, maybe, if any, who genuinely believed that there was pearl sand still hanging around. But in spite of that, I'm never going to live this down now, am I? With the pearl sand dealt with, I decided to start fishing in my artificial corrupt biome. See, last month I had managed to get the blade tongue, a weapon you can fish for in the hard mode Crimson. It was also a weapon I had never gotten before, and there was a corruption weapon you could fish up that I had also never gotten. And since I could not get hard mode ores without breaking altars, this also doubled as a way to fish up crates and collect hard mode ores the hard way. After some fishing, I went home to organize my stuff and remembered that I still needed to do fishing quests. See, despite having everything to get the shell phone, I still didn't have the high test fishing line or the angler earring. I only had a single tackle box to my name, and getting the angler tackle box would be really nice. There's already been too many times that my line has broken, but now that I think about it, I'm pretty sure these accessories will be practically useless by the time I get them, since the angler is being stubborn. I returned to fishing in the corruption, and after getting annoyed by enemies for a while, I made a fishing box that a bunch of you Terrarians out there do. Though not long after I made it into that little fishing box, a goblin army decided to stop on by. This made me really happy since it has actually been a long time since I fought a hard mode goblin army, at least within a time frame where the drops from it would actually be useful. It also gave me a renewed appreciation for how difficult the goblin summoner really is since, again, I usually fight it with a bunch of better gear, but I was still wearing Crimtane armor and was using almost exclusively pre-hard mode weapons. I did manage to kill one of the summoners though, and got the Shadow Flame Knife, which I always knew was good, but now I love it so much more than I did before. It also allowed me to take down another summoner to get the Shadow Flame Bow, which, frankly, feels like a downgraded knife, with its only benefit being longer range. After beating the Goblin army, I did another fishing quest and didn't get anything I wanted, but did still get something new to me, the Minecarp. And yes, this is fun. I returned to the corrupt fishing where only the worms would cause me the occasional problem. After quite a long time fishing, however, I finally managed to get the Toxicarp for the first time. It's kind of a cool weapon, but the fact that it's a ranger weapon has me confused. It doesn't consume any ammo or shoot any kind of bullet. If you told me that it was a mage weapon, then I'd believe you. It's an odd weapon, but perhaps it's a ranged weapon since the Crystal Serpent is already a mage one. But that begs the question, where's the summoner weapon that you can fish in hard mode? There's the Blade Tongue for melee, there's the Toxicarp for ranger, and there's the Crystal Serpent for mage. I feel like the Sanguine Staff shouldn't count either, since you have to fight for your life to get that one. Maybe Relogic just hates summoners. I did, however, get the Sundial from all of the fishing, which might not seem much to some of you people who actually fish in the game, but as a very casual fisherman at best, who sometimes does entire runs without casting a single line, Sundials are incredibly rare to me, and I was very happy to have one. I wrapped up the week by beating the Eater of Worlds just for the fun of it, and that's absolutely not me almost managing to actually lose to this thing, and then finished up by making my first set of hard mode armor, having just enough to get a Cobalt set, which I gave to my Ranger build, for some reason. One thing I forgot to mention last week is that I did manage to get a Mithril Anvil. Most of my time spent fishing was primarily so I could get that, since I couldn't even craft a lot of the hard mode weapons I could get in this stage of the game without one. So now that I have an anvil, I decided to go to a small section of desert that had been corrupted to start farming for dark shards. The tundra was along the way, and I just wanted to remind you of this. And back to the dark shards. It actually took a while longer than I thought it would, but I got the shards I needed to make the Onyx Blaster, only to remember that I needed one more if I wanted to make the Deo of Pow, or however that's pronounced. I don't know of anybody who usually makes one of these during their runs, let alone anyone who uses flails in general, unless they have no other choice. Flails just aren't that good of a weapon, but I wanted to try out the Deo of Pow since I can't remember the last time I even crafted one, and I must say, I was really disappointed. I'm pretty sure this is the final flail you can get, and it's kind of the least interesting one too. The design is fine, but it doesn't have any fun particle effects or special abilities. It's just a ball you fling around at your enemies. I also remembered that I hadn't put down the Eater of World relic yet, since I didn't feel like extending the trophy room last time. But now I had no excuse, and extended it ever so slightly so I could place down the Eater of World's relic. Placing that relic, though, reminded me of the new boss I could fight this month, and that is, of course, the Queen Slime. I quickly found a gelatin crystal in the underground hollow and started making an arena. At this point, I only had a few hard mode weapons and only had cobalt armor for my ranger build. I honestly didn't have any expectations for this fight and was more just going to do it out of curiosity. See, I've always actually had a hard time with the Queen Slime, and find her to be one of the harder bosses in Terraria for where she is in progression. Not only that, I didn't even have the typical equipment I would normally have for this fight. But I wanted to give it a try just out of a morbid curiosity for how well I could handle her. And to my surprise, I actually managed to beat her on my first try. Now, I didn't go into it totally unprepared. I did use some potions, unlike several other boss fights, but I was honestly astonished. I never would have guessed I could do that, and it really changed my perspective on Queen Slime. I always viewed her as a much harder boss that required titanium or adamantite armor, but now I knew I could take her down in master mode with only some early hard mode weaponry. I wonder if my perception of her difficulty is a little warped, since the first time I ever fought Queen Slime was also the first time I played the Summoner class, and the first time I played Master Mode. Plus, in the Shared Life series, me and the boys really struggled against her, and didn't manage to beat her until getting geared up with post-mech equipment. But that was also Shared Life, where if one of us died, then all of us would die. maybe that was just a perfect storm that made her seem more difficult than she actually is. I did some quick fishing in the hollow for a crystal serpent, but then decided I should get some wings since I still didn't have any. Though my fishing trip turned out to be a lot more useful than I thought it would be after. I opened some more crates and got another sundial, allowing me to shimmer it for the moon dial, which is something I have never gotten before. After that, I took down a couple of wyverns and got harpy wings, though I don't remember when I got the giant harpy feather, and thought I'd fight Queen Slime again in the hopes of obtaining a full set of Crystal Assassin armor. The fight was going splendidly well, and she was getting pretty low, but then I got hit 3 times in like 3 seconds and was immediately killed. Feelings that I might have just gotten lucky the first time started to seep in. Frustrated by the defeat, I did a bunch of fishing at the ocean to collect crates for hard mode ores. I didn't get a whole lot, but was able to make a set of palladium armor for my melee build, which is nice. I did another fishing quest as well, and still didn't get what I wanted. There's definitely quests I'm doing that I don't mention, but every here and there, I want to remind you that I'm still grinding for these accessories. There wasn't much else I felt like doing, so I found a few more gelatin crystals, messed around with the blood moon, and fished a whole lot more. I am hoping to get full titanium or adamantite armor for at least one of my builds before the end of the month, but I haven't had any luck thus far. Before we continue, I want to remind you that at the end of the year, I'll be throwing 1 stick of dynamite on a fresh world for every subscriber I have. We are shooting to reach 100,000 subscribers by the end of the year, which I know is an absurdly lofty goal, but I think it can be done. So if you enjoy the content, consider subscribing and claim your stick of dynamite today. I started off week 3 with the one thing I was starting to get a little tired of at this point, and that was fishing. Lots and lots fun fishing. In need of some high-octane action after the fishing trip, I grabbed some of the gelatin crystals I had collected last week and went to the hollow to fight Queen Slime. Now that I had palladium armor, I figured it'd be pretty easy. But then I lost. Again. Being stubborn and knowing I had beaten her before with worse gear, I summoned her again. And lost yet again. The pit in my stomach was growing bigger and bigger with each loss, as I was starting to think that I really had just been really lucky with my first win against her, and now I couldn't get back into the same rhythm I must have been that first time. I returned to fishing. What? I'm not afraid, I just want better armor, for no reason in particular. When I returned home, I continued to add to my collection of hard mode bars, but still didn't have enough to make a full set of anything beyond cobalt or palladium, which had me wondering just how, or maybe why, anybody would do this rather than just mining for the ores in a normal run. This fishing was absolutely painful, inconsistent, and taking forever. Not to mention, one of the crates gave me 29 adamantite ore instead of the nice clean 30, so I could get the adamantite or titanium forge, which wasn't the biggest deal ever, but did limit some of my crafting options. I continued doing fishing quests and needed one for the underground tundra, but I haven't really explored the tundra ever since my minimap got reset, so I wasn't entirely sure where to find a pool of water underground. On the map, there was a lake along the edge of a tunnel I had blown up to separate the tundra from the crimson, so I decided to give that pool a try, figuring I should double check that the crimson isn't spreading after the whole pearl sand debacle. I died on my first descent, and on the second one, I stumbled upon a crimson mimic really close to the surface. I took it down and got the Baganox or whatever, which was pretty disappointing. I know some people swear by these super fast glove things, but I always found that they just don't have a whole lot of knockback and require you to be basically touching the enemy in order to hit them, and I ended up getting myself killed more often than not when trying to use them. I finally got the fishing quest done and decided I'd summon the pirate invasion since I still haven't fought them despite them being available last month. Granted, I fought the Wall of Fresh on one of the final weeks of the last month, and thus there was no way I was going to fight the pirates unless they spawned randomly, so I thought I should face them now. They weren't too difficult, but they were by no means easy. I only ended up taking down one pirate captain, since I couldn't ever single him out amongst his minions, and after several attempts, I finally destroyed a Flying Dutchman, which I felt I had to do if I wanted to really consider the pirates defeated. I also got the discount card, which I'm pretty sure is a really rare drop and it's nice to have, though I always forget to use it, even when I do have it. Now that the pirates were down, there's not too many things for me to do before the mechs come. But there is one build that I've been putting off and that I really should start working on. And of course, I'm talking about the hollow housing units. Not the massive dungeon build that I haven't touched in over a month and have left only half finished. Right now, I need to focus on getting my hollow pylon set up anyways. It'll be really nice to have in the future. Now for this build, I knew that I wanted to make something like a wizard tower, and well, this build is going to show you something that I've been trying to say throughout several of these videos, but a number of you still don't believe me. The thing that I've been saying is that I'm not a good builder. One of the reasons for this is that I'm horrible at visualizing something and then actually recreating it. It's like art with paper and pencil. I can visualize every single stroke of the pen. I can see every detail in my mind's eye. But the moment I actually start drawing it, I end up with some sort of demented doodle as opposed to the masterpiece I had envisioned. Probably part of the reason for this is I'm especially bad at creating a basic structure for whatever it is I want to create. I never know where to start. Like for this build, I knew exactly what I wanted and could picture it in my head, but wasn't even able to build a basic skeleton for it. Rather, I pretty much randomly placed blocks until I had created some unspecified shape. This is the part where I can usually improve a bit. Once I have something to work with, I can sometimes work it into something close to what I wanted, but that was not really the case with this build. As I kept adding to it, I thought that it was looking at least a little better, but it was still pretty ugly and nothing like I wanted it to be. This was also the first time I had ever even crafted crystal blocks, since I wanted to incorporate some crystal-looking things into the build. The only thing is, they didn't really help that much. They were also kind of random and looked nothing like I thought they would. I thought these blocks glowed and had a little more texture to them. They weren't awful, but they were also nothing like what I thought they were. I have seen a bunch of builds where people make crystal things glow. How do you do it? They don't look like Gemspark blocks. They have more texture, at least the ones I've seen. How do you do it? Master builders, help me out because I'm at a loss. Are there blocks other than crystal blocks that glow that I don't know about? Or some sort of technique I'm not privy to? I also can't use actuators until next month since I can't get the steampunker, which is too bad since that limits some of my building options. But I don't think you need actuators to make these things glow, do you? There's also windows. I see a bunch of people make really cool looking windows, but mine always turn out looking pretty ugly. Maybe actuators would be helpful for that though. I continued adding to the build, hoping for it to turn out good, but nothing really made me happy with it. I turned my attention to the spire since this was meant to be a wizard tower after all, and at the moment, the spire leaves something to be desired. I thought about doing this strange branching tower thing, but that looked awful and I tore it down. I then created a straight tower with a rounded top since I thought it'd be cool to turn it into a brewing room or something, but then it looked like this. It took me a while to notice it. I tried to fix it, but I think I made it worse. Abandoning ship altogether, I flattened out the sides to make a perfectly straight tower. But this new idea actually bore some fruit, since I was much happier with how the tower looked now. I painted it black since I took some inspiration from Sauron's tower in Lord of the Rings, but I kept the purple gemspark blocks since I thought they fit well with the whole hollow and wizardy look. It definitely isn't finished by any means, but I'm at least kind of happy with how it's starting to look, and I spent a lot more time on the world this week so I could get this build to this point. During the final week, I was debating whether I wanted to fight Queen Slime again or else just work on my wizard tower thing. I thought though that I'd start with Queen Slime since I wanted to redeem myself after so many losses. Defeating her once, then losing every other fight simply wasn't good enough for me. So I headed into the underground hollow desert and managed to snag a gelatin crystal, though I ended up needing to get it twice since the first time I mined it, I didn't actually pick it up since my inventory was full, and a dune splicer decided to say hello. Of course, I died from another dune splicer when I went to retrieve it the second time. I went to fight Queen Slime, but since it was night, I figured it'd be best to sleep until morning since gastropods would be just as deadly, if not more so, than any of the slimes that Queen Slime would summon. And after so many losses, I needed to improve my chances. When the morning came, I summoned Queen Slime and was finally able to defeat her again. I got the Crystal Assassin Hood, which was another reason I wanted to fight Queen Slime. I ended up giving the armor set to my Ranger build since I just like Palladium armor too much to take it away from my melee build. Only problem is, I haven't really been using any class other than my melee one, so now the Crystal Assassin armor will likely be entirely forgotten about. But now that Queen Slime was down, it was time to turn to the wizard building. If nothing else, I wanted to add something like a support beam to the left side of it, since the tower feels like it's just hanging where it is. And remember how I said before that I needed to get the steampunker before I could get actuators? Well, it turns out that's totally wrong. You can actually buy them from the mechanic. How long has this been a thing? Or am I just dumb? I didn't have a clear vision for the build, but I guess that's not uncommon for my builds. I made a branching little arm or leg or whatever to the house and used actuators on the block since I didn't want it to be a hard surface. I then added some walls to create a little bit of depth, I guess, and then attempted to add some pillar things. Definitely not my favorite part of the build, but it's serviceable for now. This building may become a project throughout the year as I attempt to improve it. Maybe I'll need to actually watch some more tutorials or something. I also added some crystals to the bottom and filled in the remaining wall at the top of the tower, adding some chains since I thought they looked kind of interesting. I also continued to try to create a glowing effect, so I added some crystal shards since they kind of glow in and of themselves. Experimented with illuminate paint, which really didn't create the look I was going for, and messed around with gemspark blocks a bit, but couldn't quite get what I was looking for. I took a break from the build, unsure as to what to do other than perhaps wait until I can buy echo paint. I fished for a bit, still attempting to get hard mode armor from crates, but once again, came short. I did manage to get an orichalcum armor set for the mage build, and also a mithril pickaxe so I'd be ready for next month when I can finally break crimson altars. There was also a missing accessory slot for my mage though, and I thought that a sorcerer emblem would be a good idea. It then occurred to me that I hadn't fought the Wall of Fresh more than one time. So I summoned him real quickly, and you can just ignore the fact that the battle ended in a stalemate. I went to the desert after this to get a quest fish since I'm still trying to get the angler earring and the fishing line, and two big things happened when I did this. For one, I got the first ever Mirage crate I've ever fished up. I never fish in the desert at all, and the Mirage crate looks absolutely amazing. I may have to fish for more of these just for decorations. And then, when I turned in the fishing quest, I finally got an angler earring. Thing is though, as I went to put it away, I spotted another angler earring in my chest. Good thing I can shimmer that and get the fishing line. At last, I can make the lava-proof tackle box. The amount of time it took to get this thing and the shell phone is absolutely horrendous. I wrapped up the week by finding one more gelatin crystal so I could beat Queen Slime once more, just to establish that beating her isn't just luck, and so I could finally get a new summon weapon, the Blade Staff. This month I describe as being one of the most chill months I've had. I never felt bored, but I also didn't exactly make a whole lot of progression in the game either. It was simple and relaxing. I spent a whole lot of time fishing and a good chunk of it building. I'm still not very into building, nor am I excited to go fishing, but at the same time, I didn't mind when I did these things. I think part of it is that some of you watch One Year One World live, and you make it so much more fun. But another part of it is that I just felt there was nothing else I could do, but in a good way. To get hard mode ores, fishing was my only option, so instead of spending all of my time grinding in the mines for ore, which granted would have been a much shorter process, I instead cast a fishing line and prayed for crates. Maybe part of it too is that these crates are like loot boxes and opening them up releases some of that sweet dopamine. I don't know. It was a weird month where I felt quite content with the world and happy to take my time. And now we're officially halfway through, which I'm not sure how or what I'm going to fill the rest of my time with, but so much has been done in 6 months. So what else could happen with 6 more?